Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929. He was born with the name Michael Luther King Jr., but later changed his name to Martin. Martin went to segregated schools in Georgia and graduated from high school at the age of 15. He skipped both ninth and 11th grade. He went into college at the age of 15 in 1944. Martin was actually struggling with his religion. He was having issues with believing in Christ. His junior year in college, he took a religious course and that brought him back to the light of God. His grandfather started the long list of pastors while serving at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta from 1914 to 1931. His father served from 1931 to 1970, and Martin served as co-pastor with his father from 1960 until Martin's death. After his college, he received a B.A. degree in 1948 from Morehouse College. Morehouse College is a distinguished Negro school of Atlanta where Martin's grandfather and father both graduated. Martin had studied theological. Martin then studied theological at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania. He was elected president of the predominantly white senior class. He was then awarded the B.D. in 1951. He then studied at Boston University, completing his residency in 1953 and getting his degree in 1955. While in Boston, he got married to Coretta Scott, and then he had 2 sons and 2 daughters. He later became the member of the National Association of Advancement of Colored People. In December 1955, he was the leader of the first colored organized nonviolent crime in the United States with the bus boycott. While the boycott was happening, Martin was arrested, his home was bombed, and he was subject to personal abuse. But at the same time, he was made the Negro leader at first rank. The boycott lasted 382 days. On December 21st, the boycott ended with the United States Supreme Court declaring segregation of buses as unconstitutional. In 1957, he was elected the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. In the 11-year period of 1957 and 1968, Martin traveled over 6 million miles and spoke over 2,500 times. At the time period, he wrote 5 books and many articles. At the age of 35, he was the youngest person to have received the Nobel Peace Prize. He got a prize reward of $54,123. He established the March on Washington, where over 250,000 people marched. Martin was arrested over 20 times and assaulted at least 4. 1963, August 28th, was the I Have a Dream speech. It was the largest rally for cause in American history. The I Have a Dream speech was delivered in 25,000 people in Detroit several months in advance for practice. He was awarded with being named Man of the Year by New York Times in 1963. In 1968, Martin was starting to get sick of going to jail and living with the constant death threats. Him and his advisors started making plans for another march on Washington to end the entire Civil Rights Act. In the spring of 1968, a labor strike in Memphis drew Martin in. On April 3rd, he said a speech to the people, saying, "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I need you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." The very next day, he was shot at his motel balcony. The shooter was a former convict named James Earl Ray. An international hunt was made to find the shooter after the killing. After 2 months, they finally caught him. In 1969, Ray pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. He died in prison on April 23, 1998. The killings of Martin Luther King started riots in 100 cities nationwide. Martin Luther King Jr. was the civil rights movement leader in 1960. His goal was to make everybody equal, no matter what race, sex, sexual orientation, or pigment of their hair. He wanted everybody to stay equal, just the same as all whites.